Alright, episode 30 of TeflonStoic's journey to ideally 60, learning about Roman virtue and Stoicism. We're continuing the letters of Seneca. I hope you enjoy them and learn as much as I have, if I can find it.
You can tell me about anything you like. Colds, coughing fits that brings up part of your insides, fevers that burn your very core, thirst, limbs twisted so badly that the joints stick out in different directions. Yet worse than all of these things are the stake, the rack, the red-hot plates, the tool that reopens wounds while they are still swollen and presses even deeper. But there have been people who didn't utter a single groan during those tortures. More pain, says the torturer, but the victim hasn't begged for mercy. More pain, he says again, but there's no answer. More pain, the victim has smiled, and not just a faint smile, but a hearty one. Can't you bring yourself, after seeing such an example, to laugh at pain? But you might say my illness keeps me from doing anything. It has taken me away from all my duties. It's your body that's held back by illness, not your soul. That's why it hinders the feet of the runner and the work of the shoemaker or the craftsman. But if your soul is trained, you can still plead and teach, listen and learn,
For just a few coin, my
think.
griffins can get you
What
there
more do
faster
you need?
than...
Do you
Enjoy
think
your
you're
flight.
doing nothing if you keep control of yourself and your illness? You're showing that disease can be beaten, or at least endured. That is, I assure you, a place for virtue even when you're lying sick in bed. It's not just in battle with swords that the soul shows itself as alert and unafraid. A person can show bravery even when wrapped in bedcloths. You have something to do. Fight bravely against your illness. If it doesn't force you to do anything or trick you into anything, you're showing a great example. Oh, how much recognition you'd get if we could have an audience for our sicknesses. Be your own audience. Seek your own applause. There are two kinds of pleasures. Disease takes away the pleasures of the body but doesn't get rid of them entirely. Actually, if you think about it, it makes them more intense. The thirstier a person is, the more they enjoy a drink. The hungrier they are, the more they relish food. Anything you get after a period of doing without is welcomed with greater enthusiasm. The other kind, the pleasures of the mind, which are higher and more certain, can't be taken away by any illness. Whoever seeks these and knows what they are will look down on all pleasures of the senses. People say, poor sick fellow. But why? Is it because he doesn't mix snow with his wine, or because he doesn't chill his drink, mixed in a bowl, by adding ice? Or because he doesn't have fresh oysters from the Cream Bay opened at his table? Or because there's no noise from cooks around his dining room, bringing in their cooking equipment along with the food? Because luxury has already come up with this idea of having the kitchen brought to the dining room so the food doesn't get lukewarm or isn't hot enough for the palate that's become dull. Poor sick fellow. He'll eat only what he can digest. There won't be a boar lying in front of him, thrown off the table as if it were common meat. And his table won't be piled high with bird breast meat because it makes him sick to see birds served whole. But what harm has been done to you? You'll eat like a sick man, sometimes even like a healthy man. All these things can easily be endured. Gruel, warm water, and anything else that seems unbearable to a picky person. Someone who's drowning in luxury, sick in spirit rather than in body. If only we stop fearing death, and we will stop. Once we understand the limits of good and bad, then and only then life won't tire us out and won't scare us. For being tired of life can never happen to someone who explores all the great and divine things around us. Only useless idleness makes people hate their lives. To someone who travels through the universe, the truth will never become boring. It's the lies that will make you feel weary. And on the other hand, if death comes near with its call, even if it comes too soon and cuts you off in your prime, a person who has tasted all that the longest life can offer has already had enough. Such a person understands the universe in a big way. They know that honorable things don't need time to grow, but any life will seem short to those who measure its length by empty pleasures that never end. Refresh yourself with these thoughts, and save some time for our letters. There will come a time when we'll be together again, and however short time that may be, we'll make it long by knowing how to use it. As Posidonius says, a single day among the wise lasts longer than the longest life of the ignorant. Hold on to this thought and keep it close. Don't give in to adversity. Don't trust in prosperity. Keep in mind the full range of Fortune's power, as if she will definitely do whatever she can. What has been expected for a long time comes more gently. Farewell. Letter 79. On the rewards of scientific discovery. I've been waiting for a letter from you so that you can tell me what new things you discovered during your trip around Sicily. I especially want to know more about Charybdis. I know that Scylla is just a rock and not one that sailors fear much. But when it comes to Charybdis, I'd like a full description to see if it matches what the myths say. You happen to investigate it, which I think you would find interesting. Please explain this to me. Is it turned into a whirlpool by wind coming from only one direction? Or do all storms stem it up? Is it true that objects pulled down by the whirlpool are carried underwater for many miles and then come up again on the beach near Tauromenium? If you write me a full account of these things, I'll have the courage to ask you to do something else. To climb Mount Etna is a special favor to me. Some scientists think the mountain is slowly shrinking and sinking because sailors used to be able to see it from farther away. This might not be because the mountain is getting shorter, but because the flames have become weaker and the eruptions are less strong and less frequent. Because of this, the smoke might also be less noticeable during the day. But either of these things could be true. The mountain might be getting smaller because it's being burnt up every day, or it might be staying the same size because the mountain isn't consuming itself. Instead, the stuff that boils out collects in some underground valley and is fed by other material. The mountain itself isn't the fuel, it's just the way out for the flames. There's a well-known place in Lycia, which the locals call Hephaestion, where the ground is full of holes and surrounded by harmless fire that doesn't hurt the plants growing there. Because the flames don't burn but only give off a mild light, the place is fertile and full of growth. Let's put off this discussion until you can describe how far the snow lies from the crater, especially the snow that doesn't melt even in summer, safely away from the nearby fire. I don't think you have to do this just because I asked. You were already going to indulge your love of fine writing without anyone asking you to. What should I offer you? Not only to describe Etna in your poem, but also to give it the full attention it deserves, just as all poets are expected to do. Ovid didn't let the fact that Virgil had already covered this topic stop him from using it, and neither of them scared off Cornelius Severus. The topic has served them all well, and I think those who come before didn't say everything that is to say, but just opened the way. It makes a big difference whether you approach a subject that's been fully explored or one that's only been started. In the latter case, the topic grows every day, and what's already been discovered doesn't prevent new discoveries. Besides, the person who writes last has the advantage. They find words already at hand that, when arranged differently, reveal something new, and they're not stealing these words because they belong to everyone. Now, if Etna doesn't excite you, then I'm mistaken about you. You've wanted for some time to write something in a grand style like the older writers. Your modesty won't let you hope for more than that. And this modesty is so strong that it seems to me you might hold back your natural talent if you thought you might outdo others. You respect the old masters that much. Wisdom has this benefit. Among others, no one can surpass another, except while they're still living. But when you've reached the top, everyone is equal. There's no more room to climb and the competition is over. Can the sun grow any larger? Can the moon become fuller than usual? The seas don't get bigger, the universe stays the same mountains. Things that have reached their full size can grow any taller, so people who've gained wisdom will be equal and on the same level. Each will have their own special talents. One might be more friendly, another more skilled, another more witty, and another. But when it comes to the quality that brings happiness, it's the same. I don't know if your Etna can collapse. Whether this tall peak visible from miles away over the sea is worn down by the constant power of the flames. But I do know that virtue can't be brought down by flames of destruction. Virtue is the only greatness that never diminishes. It can't rise any higher or sink any lower. Its stature, like the stars in the sky, is fixed. So let's strive to raise ourselves to this height. We've already accomplished much of the task, or rather, if I'm honest, not much at all. Being good doesn't just mean being better than the worst. Who would brag about their eyesight if they could only catch a glimpse of daylight? Someone who sees the sun shining through the mists might be happy that they've escaped darkness, but they don't yet enjoy the full blessing of light. Our souls won't have a reason to be truly happy until freed from the darkness where they stumble. They've not only glimpsed the brightness, but absorbed the full light of day and returned to their place in the sky. Until they've regained the position they held at the beginning of their existence, the soul is called upward by its very origin. And it will reach that goal even before it's released from its earthly prison, as soon as it has cast off sin, and in purity and lightness has risen into the celestial realms of thought. I'm glad, dear Lucilius, that we're focused on this goal, that we're pursuing it with all our strength, even if only a few people know it, or even none at all. Fame is the shadow of virtue. It follows virtue even against its will. But just as a shadow sometimes comes before and follows behind or even lags, fame sometimes goes ahead of us and shows itself clearly, and sometimes it's behind, growing larger the longer it takes to arrive, especially once envy has retreated. How long did people think Democritus was mad? Glory barely reached Socrates. And how long did it take our state to realize Cato's worth? They rejected him and didn't recognize his value until after they lost him. If Lucilius hadn't accepted the wrong done to him, his innocence and virtue might have gone unnoticed. The moment of his suffering was also the moment of his triumph. Didn't he give thanks for his fate and welcome his exile with open arms? So far I've mentioned those whose fame grew even in the face of persecution. But how many people's journey toward virtue was only recognized after they died? And how many were not saved by their reputation? Take Epicurus, for example. Look at how much he's admired, not just by the educated, but also by the common people. Yet this man was unknown even in Athens, where he lived in seclusion. So when he had already outlived his friend Metrodorus by many years, he wrote these last words in a letter expressing gratitude for friendship. Metrodorus and I were so greatly blessed that it didn't matter to us that we were unknown and almost unheard of in this well-known land of Greece. So isn't it true that people didn't really discover him until after he was gone? Yet his fame still shone brightly. Metrodorus also admits this in one of his letters, that Epicurus and he weren't well known to the public. But he says that after that time, anyone who wanted to follow in their footsteps would gain great and ready-made fame. Virtue is never truly hidden, and even if it seems to be, it's not really lost. There will come a day when it's revealed, even if it's been kept out of sight or suppressed by the malice of time. Anyone who only thinks of the people of their own generation is living for a very small audience. Many thousands of years and many thousands of people will come after you. It's for them that you should live. Malice might silence everyone in your time, but future generations will judge you fairly without bias. If there's any reward that virtue gets from fame, even that won't disappear. We ourselves won't be affected by what people say in the future, but still, they will cherish and celebrate us if we don't know it. Virtue has always rewarded those who follow her faithfully, both in life and after death. This happens whether or not they dress themselves up or put on a show, and whether they appear suddenly or after being announced. Pretending doesn't achieve anything. Few are fooled by a mask that can easily be taken off. Truth is the same in every part. Things that deceive us don't have real substance. Lies are thin and see-through if you look at them closely. Farewell. Letter 80. On worldly deceptions. Today I have some free time. Thanks not so much to my own schedule, but because of the games, which have drawn all the noisy people to the boxing match. No one will interrupt me or disturb my thoughts, which can now flow more freely because I feel confident that I won't be disturbed. My door hasn't been constantly creaking and my curtain won't be pulled aside. My thoughts can continue sailing, which is especially important for someone who thinks for themselves and follows their own path. Do I follow no one who came before me? I do. But I also allow myself to discover something new, to change things, or to reject ideas. I'm not a slave to others, even though I respect their work. Still, it was a bold statement when I said I will have some quiet and uninterrupted time. For now, I hear a loud cheer from the stadium, and while it doesn't distract me completely, it does make me think of the contrast it brings to mind. I think to myself how many people train their bodies and how few train their minds. Look at the crowds that flock to these games, even though they are just for entertainment, and see how empty the places are where good lessons are taught. How silly are the athletes whose muscles and broad shoulders we admire. The question I think about most is this: if the body can be trained to endure so much that it can take the hits and kicks from several opponents at once, and last the whole day under the scorching sun and the burning dust drenched in its own blood, if this is possible, then how much easier should it be to toughen the mind so that it can take the blows of fortune and not be defeated, so that it can get back up after being knocked down and trampled on? While the body needs many things to be strong, the mind grows from within, nourishing and training itself. Those athletes need lots of food, lots of drink, lots of oil, and long hours of training. But you can acquire virtue without any equipment or expense. Everything that makes you a good person is already inside you. What do you need to become good? Just need to want it. But what better thing could you wish for than to break free from this slavery? A slavery that weighs us all down. A slavery that even the lowest born slaves, born in such lowly conditions, try in every way to escape. They spend their hard-earned savings, which they've collected by scribbling on their own knees, just to buy their freedom. Shouldn't you be just as eager to gain your liberty? Especially since you consider it your birthright? Why do you look at your money box? Freedom can't be bought. It's pointless to list freedom as an item in your ledger, because freedom belongs neither to those who buy it nor to those who sell it. You have to give this gift to yourself and seek it from within yourself. First, free yourself from the fear of death, because death is what puts the yoke around your necks. Then free yourself from the fear of poverty. If you want to see how little evil there is in poverty, compare the faces of the poor with those of the rich. The poor smile more often and more sincerely. Their troubles don't cut deep. Even if they feel anxious, it passes quickly, like a brief cloud. But the happiness of those who are called rich is fake, while the sadness is heavy and festering. It's even worse because they can't show their grief and must pretend to be happy, even when sorrow is eating away at their hearts. I often feel the need to use the following example. I think it's one of the best ways to explain this drama of human life, where we play our roles so poorly. Look at the man who struts on the stage with a proud posture and head held high, saying, "Look, I am the one whom Argos hails as Lord, the one whom Pelops left as their heir to the lands that stretch from the Hellespont to the Ionian Sea, and all the way to the Isthmian Straits." And who is this man? He is just a slave. His wage is 5 measures of grain and 5 denarii. Another man, proud and arrogant, boasting of his power, declares, "Peace, Menelaus, or this hand shall slay you." He receives a day allowance and sleeps on rags. You could say the same for all those spicy people you see being carried as above the heads of men and above the crowd. In every case, their happiness is just an act, like the mask an actor wears. Tear it off and you'll see how little they are worth. When you buy a horse, you ask for its blanket to be removed. Pull off the clothes from the slaves being sold so that no flaws on their bodies are hidden from you. So why would you judge a man when he is wrapped in a disguise? Slave dealers hide any defects on the fine clothing that might otherwise turn you away. And for that reason, the very trappings make the buyer suspicious. If you see a leg or an arm wrapped in cloth, you demand that it be uncovered so you can see the body itself. Do you see that Scythian or Sarmatian king over there wearing his crown of office? If you want to see his true worth, take off his crown. You'll find much evil hidden beneath it. But why talk about others? If you want to know your own value, put away your money. your lands, and your titles, and look into your soul. Right now, you are relying on what others say about you. Farewell. Letter 81, on favors. You complain that you've met someone who is ungrateful. If this is the first time you've experienced this, you should be thankful either for your good luck or your caution. But in this case, being cautious won't help much, except to make you less generous. Because if you want to avoid the risk of someone being ungrateful, you might stop giving altogether. And then instead of losing favors to others, you'll lose them to yourself. It's better to receive nothing in return than to stop doing favors. Even after a bad harvest, one should plant seeds again, because often years of poor crops can be made up for by 1 year of good growth. To find one grateful person, it's worth dealing with many ungrateful ones. No one is so perfect at giving that they aren't sometimes deceived. It's good for a traveler to wander off the path so they can learn to find it again. After a shipwreck, sailors still go back to sea. A banker isn't scared from the market by one cheater. If we gave up on everything that caused trouble, life would quickly become dull and lazy. But in your case, this situation might encourage you to be even more generous. When the outcome of an action is uncertain, you have to keep trying in order to eventually succeed. I've already discussed this topic in detail in the volumes I've written called On Favors, but I think we should explore another question that hasn't been made clear enough. If someone who helped us later harms us, does that cancel out the help and free us from being grateful? You could also ask, what if the harm done later is greater than the help given before? If you're looking for a fair and strict judgment, you'll find that it balances one act against the other and says, even if the harm is greater than the favor, we should still give credit for any favor that remains after considering the harm. The harm might be greater, but the favor was given first, so the timing should also be taken into account. There are some cases so clear that I don't need to remind you to consider things like, how willingly was the favor given, and how reluctantly was the harm done, since both favors and harms depend on the intention behind them. I didn't really want to give a favor, but I was convinced by respect for the person, or because they insisted, or because I hoped for something in return. Our feelings about any obligation depend on the spirit in which the favor was given. We don't measure the size of the gift, but the quality of the goodwill behind it. So let's be clear. The first action was a favor, and the later action, which outweighed the first, was an injury. A good person will look at both sides and choose to be generous by giving more weight to the favor and less to the harm. But a more lenient judge, which is the kind I'd rather be, will tell us to forget the harm and remember the favor. But surely you might say it's fair to give thanks for a favor than to seek retribution, or at least feel resentment for the harm. That's true when the harm and the favor come from two different people, but if it's the same person, the harm is lessened by the favor they provided. In fact, someone who should be forgiven, even if they hadn't done any good deed, should receive more than just leniency if they made a mistake after doing something good. I don't value favors and injuries equally. I think favors are worth more than injuries. Not everyone understands how much they owe for a favor. Even a thoughtless person might know they owe something, especially right after receiving it, but they don't realize how much they're truly indebted. Only a wise person knows exactly how to value everything, because a fool, even with good intentions, either repays less than they owe or does it at the wrong time or in the wrong way. What they should have repaid, they waste or lose. There's a wonderfully precise way of talking about these things. An old way of expressing certain actions with symbols that clearly outline what our duties are. We often say, he has made a return for the favor. Making a return means voluntarily giving back what you owe. You don't say he has paid back the favor, because payback is used when someone is demanded to pay. When they pay unwillingly, when they pay in any situation or through someone else, we don't say he has restored the favor or settled it. We never use words that are really about repaying money. Making a return means offering something to the person who gave you something. The phrase implies a voluntary act. The person who makes such a return has done so willingly. A wise person will think carefully about all circumstances, how much they receive, from whom, when, where, and how. That's why we say only the wise person knows how to make a true return for a favor. Moreover, only the wise person knows how to give a a favor. Someone who enjoys giving more than the receiver enjoys getting. Now, someone might think that this is one of those surprising statements we Stoics like to make, the kind the Greeks call paradoxes, and they might say, do you really believe only the wise person knows how to return a favor? Do you think no one else knows how to pay back a debt to a creditor, or how to pay the full price when buying something? To avoid any misunderstanding, let me tell you that even Epicurus says the same thing. Metrodorus, one of his followers, also said that only the wise person knows how to return a favor. Again, the person who objected earlier might be surprised by our saying, only the wise person knows how to love. Only the wise person is a true friend. And yet part of love and friendship is returning favors, and it's something that happens more often than true friendship. That same person might also be surprised when we say there's no true loyalty except in the wise person, as if they don't believe the same thing. Or do you think someone who doesn't know how to return a favor can be truly loyal? These critics should stop doubting us as if we're making impossible claims. They should understand that true honor resides in the wise person, while the general crowd only has a shadow of appearance of honor. Only the wise person knows how to return a favor. Even a fool can try to return it as best as they know how, but their fault is not in lacking the will, but in lacking the knowledge. The desire to repay isn't something that can be taught. The wise person will compare everything carefully because the same action can be more or less significant depending on time, place, and reason. Sometimes, spending a fortune on a palace doesn't achieve as much as a small gift given at the right time. It makes a big difference whether you give freely or help someone in need, whether your generosity saves someone or helps them get started in life. Sometimes the gift itself is small, but the impact is great. And what do you think is the difference between taking something you lack when it's offered and receiving a favor to return the favor? But let's not dive back into a topic we've already discussed. When balancing favors and injuries, the good person will judge as fairly as possible. They will lean toward the side of the favor. They will be more inclined to give more weight to the good. Moreover, in these matters, the person involved is very important. People might say, you helped me with that issue about my slave, but you hurt me in the case of my father. In the same way, they'll compare other situations where differences can be found. If the difference is small, they'll pretend not to notice it. Even if the difference is big, if it doesn't affect their duty and loyalty, a good person will overlook it, as long as the injury only affects them personally. To sum it up, the good person will be generous when striking a balance. They'll allow too much credit to go against the inquiry. They won't want to repay a favor by balancing it with an injury. They'll lean toward wanting to be indebted for the favor and wanting to repay it. Anyone who enjoys receiving a favor more than repaying it is mistaken. Just as someone who repays a loan feels lighter than someone who borrows, someone who frees themselves from debt that the favor received should feel more joyful than someone who takes on a new obligation. Ungrateful people make another mistake. They have to repay their creditors both the original amount and the interest. But they think favors are something they can use without paying interest. So the debt grows with delay, and the longer they wait, the more they owe. A person is ungrateful if they repay a favor without interest. So, interest should also be considered when comparing what you received and what you've given. We should try in every way to be as grateful as possible. Gratitude is good for us, in a way that justice, which is usually thought of as something that concerns others, isn't. Gratitude benefits us directly. There isn't a person who, when they've helped their neighbor, hasn't also helped themselves. I don't mean just because the person you help might want to help you back, or because someone you defended might want to protect you. Because a good example can come back around to benefit you, just as bad examples come back to harm those who set them. The true reward for all virtue lies in the virtue themselves. Virtues aren't practiced for some reward. The reward of doing good is simply having done it. I feel grateful so that my neighbor, motivated by my kindness, might be more willing to help me in the future, but simply because it's a pleasant and beautiful act. I feel grateful not so that my neighbor, motivated by my kindness, might be more willing to help me in the future, but simply because it's a pleasant and beautiful act. I feel grateful not because it benefits me, but because it pleases me. And to prove this, I declare that even I couldn't be grateful without seeming ungrateful, even if I could only return a favor by doing something that looks like harm. I would still strive calmly toward the goal that honor demands, even in the midst of disgrace. No one, I believe, values virtue more highly or is more dedicated to it than the person who loses their reputation for being good, just to keep from losing the approval of their own conscience. As I've said, being grateful is more beneficial to you than to your neighbor. While your neighbor has had an ordinary experience receiving back the favor they gave, you've had a great experience that comes from a truly happy state of mind, the feeling of gratitude. If wickedness makes people unhappy and virtue makes them blessed, and if gratitude is a virtue, then the return you've made is just normal. But the feeling you've gained is priceless. The consciousness of gratitude, which belongs only to a divine and blessed soul. The opposite feeling, however, brings immediate misery. No ungrateful person will be unhappy in the future. I say they are unhappy right now. So let's avoid being ungrateful, not for the sake of others, but for our own sake. When we do wrong, only the smallest and lightest part of it affects our neighbor. The worst and heaviest part stays with us and troubles us. My teacher Artolus used to say, evil itself drinks the largest portion of its own poison. The poison that snakes carry to harm others and secrete without harming themselves is not like this poison. This kind is ruinous to the one who possesses it. The ungrateful person tortures and torments themselves. They hate the gifts they've accepted because they have to repay them, and they try to downplay their value, but they actually exaggerate the injuries they've received. And what's more miserable than someone who forgets the good done for them but clings to the wrongs? Wisdom, on the other hand, adds grace to every favor and willingly remembers it, delighting in the continuing growth. Evil people only enjoy favors for a short time, just while they're receiving them, but the wise person gets lasting and eternal joy from them. They find joy not so much in receiving the favor, but in having received it, and this joy never fades. It stays with them always. They despise the wrongs done to them. They forget, not by accident, but on purpose. They don't twist everything into something negative and look for someone to blame for every little thing. Instead, they attribute even the wrongs of others to chance. They won't misinterpret a word or a look. They might make light of all misfortunes by interpreting them generously. They don't remember an injury more than a favor. As much as possible, they let their memory focus on the earlier and better deeds, never changing their attitude toward those who have treated them well, except in cases where the bad deeds far outweigh the good, and the difference is so obvious that even someone who's trying to ignore it can see it. Even then, they'll only go as far as to try to return to the way they felt before they received the favor. The injury is equal to the favor, some positive feeling remains. Just as a defendant is acquitted, both are equal. And just as kindness always tries to interpret every doubtful case in the best possible way, the wise person's mind, when someone's merits equal to theirs, will stop feeling an obligation, but won't stop wanting to feel it. They act like someone who pays the debts even after they've been legally cancelled. But no one can be truly grateful unless they learn to scorn the things that drive most people crazy. If you want to return a favor, you must be willing to go into exile, to bleed, to face poverty, or, as it often happens, even to let your innocence be stained and exposed to shameful slander. Being grateful isn't a cheap price to pay. We value a favor highly when we're trying to get it. We value it cheaply after we've received it. You want to know why we forget favors we receive? It's because our extreme greed for getting more. We don't think about what we've already obtained, but what we are going to seek next. We're led off course by riches, titles, power, and everything that seems valuable to us but is worthless when judged by its true value. We don't know how to weigh things properly. We should judge them by their true nature, not by their reputation. These things don't have any real grandeur to capture our minds, except for the fact that we've gotten used to admiring them. They're not praised because they deserve to be desired, but they're desired because they've been praised. And when individuals err, create public errors, the public error goes on creating more mistakes in individuals. Just as we accept certain things based on others' opinions, let's also accept this truth that everyone agrees on. Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. This idea will be echoed by all cities and races, even those from savage lands. On this point, good and bad people will agree. Some people praise pleasure, some prefer hard work. Some say pain is the greatest evil, while others say it's no evil at all. Some include riches as part of the supreme good, while others say that finding wealth has harmed humanity and that no one is richer than a person who has nothing left for fortune to give. Amid all this diversity of opinion, all people will agree that we should give thanks to those who have done well by us. On this question, even the rebellious common crowd will agree, but right now we seem to repay injuries instead of favors. The main reason someone is ungrateful is that they feel they can't be grateful enough. Our madness has gone so far that it's become dangerous to give great favors to someone, because the shame of not repaying them might make the person wish they didn't have to. Keep what you've received. I don't ask for it back. I don't demand it. Let it be safe to have given a favor. There is no worse hatred than the kind that comes from the shame of not repaying a favor. Matching the comfort in which it lives. Isn't it better for someone who is truly strong to become tough instead? These same people who indulge in luxury end up fearing the very thing they've made their lives resemble. There's a big difference between lying around doing nothing and lying buried in a grave. But you say, isn't it better to lie idle than to be caught up in the chaos of busyness? Both extremes should be avoided.
I need more mana.
Both tension and laziness. I believe that someone who
work.
lies on a perfumed couch is no less dead than someone who is dragged along by the executioner's hook. Leisure without purpose is death. It's like a tomb for someone who's still alive. So, what's the point of retreating from life? As if the real causes of our worries didn't follow us everywhere we go. Is there any place where the fear of death doesn't
Thank you
reach?
for all your help.
Are there any peaceful
Adventurer,
spots so
the
well
gnolls are
protected
still
and
out
far
there.
away
You
that
can hear
pain
their
can't fill
baying
them
as they
with
hunt
fear?
in the hills above
Wherever
Lakeshire.
you hide,
And one cry
human
is louder
problems
than the
will
rest.
surround you with
Yowler,
noise.
their leader. Kill
There are
Yowler
many
and send his
external
pack
things that
scattering.
deceive
Bring me
us
his
or
paw
wear us
as
down.
proof. And be careful.
And there are many
This gnoll is their
internal
leader
things
for a
that
reason.
trouble us,
He
even
is no
when we're
mongrel.
alone. So shield yourself with philosophy, which is like an unbreakable wall. Even though many forces may attack it, fortune can't find a way in. The soul stands on solid ground if it has let go of external things. It's independent in its own stronghold, and every weapon thrown at it falls short. Fortune doesn't have the long reach we think it does. She can only grab hold of those who cling to her. Let's pull away from her as much as we can. We can only do this through understanding ourselves and the natural world. The soul should know where it's going and where it came from. What's good for it and what's bad, and what it should seek and what it should avoid. And
Where
what
would you like
reason
to fly
is
to?
the thing that helps us tell the difference between what's desirable and
Have a good one.
undesirable. Taming our wild desires and calming our fears. Some people think they've overcome these fears by themselves, without the help of philosophy. But when something unexpected happens, they are forced to admit they were wrong. Their boastful words disappear when the torturer tells them to stretch out their hands, and when death gets closer. You might say to such a person, it was easy for you to challenge troubles when they weren't close by, but now pain is here. The pain you said you could handle. Now death is near, the death you spoke about so bravely. The whip cracks, the sword flashes, now, Aeneas, you must be strong and brave. However, this strength will only come from constant practice if you train not just your words, but your soul, and if you prepare yourself to face death. But don't expect encouragement from those who try to convince you, with their tricky arguments, that death isn't bad. For I enjoy poking fun at the absurdities of the Greeks, which to my surprise I still haven't completely shaken off. Our master Zeno uses a syllogism like this. No evil is glorious, but death is glorious.
My
Therefore,
gnomish friend
death
Carl
is no
has promised to
evil.
help me build a device
Well done,
to let
Zeno.
it appear
I'm
towards
cured
the
of
star.
my fear.
A
Now
truth
I won't
exists
hesitate to offer
beyond
my
that
neck to the
that can explain
executioner.
the strange transformation
But shouldn't you
in the
be
forest.
speaking more
You bring to
seriously
me a
instead
bronze
of making a
tube
dying
made by
man
a
laugh?
skilled engineer.
Honestly,
That is the first
Lucilius,
step
I couldn't tell
towards
you
God's
whether the
wisdom.
person who thought he was
This is
quenching the
perfect.
fear of death with
The
his
first step
argument
is
was more
complete.
foolish, or the one who
According to
tried to
Cog's
refute
blueprint,
it,
what I
as
need
if it
now
had
is a way to
anything to
reflect
do
light.
with the real
I
issue.
remember a woman by the name of Mary.
For the
who
refuter
became
himself
well-known
came up with a
around these parts for always
counter-syllogism,
carrying a looking glass.
based on the
Perhaps
idea
you can track
that we
Mary
consider
down and see if
death
she might
as
lend us a
indifferent.
reflective surface
One of
for
those
this
things
project.
the Greeks
I believe
call
she once resided
nothing.
in southern Duskwood.
Nothing, he says, that is indifferent can be glorious. Death is glorious. Therefore, death is not indifferent. You see the tricky fallacy in this argument.
King's honor, friend.
Mere death isn't
Something's
glorious,
amiss
but a
at
brave
Raven Hill
death is
Adventure.
glorious. And when you
Taller
say
swears
nothing
that
that is
someone or
indifferent is
something
glorious,
is
I
haunting the
agree, but I
buildings
also say that
2
nothing
nights
is
running, he's
glorious
noticed the
except
shadows
in
moving.
how it deals
And the
with
third
indifferent
before that, he
things.
says he saw light.
I
in the
classify
window.
as indifferent,
If, as you say,
neither
you
good
care
nor
about
bad,
the safety of
things like
Duskwood,
sickness,
find out what
pain,
monster
poverty,
haunts Raven
exile,
Hill.
and death. None of these things is glorious by itself, but nothing can be
Where
glorious
would you like
without
to
them.
fly to?
For we don't praise poverty, but the person who poverty
Safe
can't
travel.
break or bend. Nor do we.
We're heading to Wailing Caverns.
Exile with the same spirit he would have had if he were sending someone else into exile. We don't praise pain, but the person whom pain can't conquer. We don't praise death, but the person who dies without letting death overwhelm his soul. All these things are not in themselves honorable or glorious, but any one of them, when touched by virtue, becomes honorable and glorious because of virtue. They are neutral, and what matters is whether wickedness or virtue takes hold of them. For example, the death that was glorious for Cato was disgraceful for Brutus. Brutus was sentenced to death, tried to get a delay. He took a moment to relieve himself, and when he was called to die in order to bear his throat, he said, "I'll bear my throat, but only if I can live." What madness is it to try to escape when there's no way to turn back? "I'll bear my throat, but only if I can live," he almost said, even under Antony. This man indeed deserved to be condemned to life. But as I was saying, you see that death itself is neither good or bad. Cato faced death most honorably, while Brutus faced it most shamefully. Anything, when you add virtue to it, takes on a glory it didn't have before. We talk about a sunny room,